Hello! Today I'm coming to you with a tag from Milena Reads. She developed the Modern Classics tag, which I'm a little bit late to, but better late than never, I guess. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. So I guess I'll just get right to the tag. Okay, the first question is, what's the definition of a modern classic to you? And this is obviously a very vague definition, but for me, a modern classic is basically any book from the 20th century that people still talk about and know about. Like, I know that's super broad, but I feel like the idea of a classic is sort of problematic anyways, because it requires you to sort of buy into this idea of a canon, and canons can leave people out who, were not given opportunities at the time of their, life, or also are not valued now as important voices of that time. Mini sidebar there, but yeah, I feel like anything that was published in the 20th century that people still read and value, I think that counts as a classic. Question 2 is favorite subgenre of modern classics. I guess because that is a very broad definition, this makes sense. I will go ahead and say nonfiction, specifically the essay. I feel like, especially late 20th century, from 1950 to 2000, it was sort of a golden era of essay writing, and it's sort of when that genre first took off in its own right. I mean, I don't actually know too much about the history of the essay, but yeah, so I think, a lot of the people that you read now that are viewed as classics in that genre are modern classics, they wrote during that time period. Yeah, so I feel like that's a little boring coming from me since I always say essays, but it's true. Next up we have number 3, an author from the 20th century whose books you would recommend, and there are a lot of them. If we're staying with essays, 2 essays that I think a lot of people would consider really classic essayists would be Joan Didion. This is Slouching towards Bethlehem, which is one of her collections, mainly about California in the 60s, and it definitely is one of those collections that will really set you in a time and place. There's a lot of journalistic elements to this, so there's that aspect as well. Another really famous essayist is George Orwell, who's, I guess, maybe more famous for 1984 and Animal Farm, but I feel like his essays are actually his best writing by far. This guy's mind was like a steel trap. Basically, you'd start at the beginning of the sentence, and by the end of the sentence, you don't know how you got there, but he's totally convinced you of something that you didn't even know you had an opinion on in the first place. His criticism and persuasive essays are very good. This collection, All Art is Propaganda, is specifically his critical essays. He also has, a collective work of narrative essays, which I forget what that one's called, but I think that one has shooting an elephant in it, which is probably his most famous essay, but also very, very good. Will always recommend these guys. Okay, number 4 is your favorite modern classic so far this year. I'll just say I've been having a really weird reading year, and by weird I mean undirectly and vaguely dissatisfying. So there's that. And I went through my Goodreads and found that I've only really read one book that I think could count as a modern classic, which is an Agatha Christie novel, Cat Among the Pigeons. That's a later book in the Hercule Poirot series. Is that one of her best known mysteries? No. Do I think out of her books that would be considered one of the classic Christies? Also no, but it is a mid-20th century novel that I read that people still talk about Agatha Christie, so according to my own definition, that works. Number 5 is a modern classic that surprised you, and for me, it would be The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. I think that I sort of had the idea that this would be a little boring, sort of not very relevant to me or my life or my feelings. I read this in high school, not for high school, but just over spring break one year, and I feel like it resonated with me then, but then since then it's taken on more and more power in my life, and I'm constantly surprised by how I'll be feeling a way and I'll be able to relate that feeling back to something that I remember from this book. So basically, The Bell Jar is a not very well disguised semi-autobiographical novel about a woman who is at college and gets an internship at a women's magazine in New York, and it's about her and her mental health struggles. I remember it being very amazing. I don't remember a lot of details at this point because, again, I read it in high school, but I definitely remember a couple scenes that have really, really stuck with me. So this one definitely surprised me. Number 6 is a modern classic that disappointed you. And I have a hard time thinking of one of these because I feel like I never read far enough to be disappointed if I don't think a book is gonna be for me, basically. Like, I'm a big DNFer, so thankfully that means I don't get disappointed that often. In high school, I did definitely read some that I did not enjoy. Who wrote The Crucible and Death of a Salesman? I don't like that guy. I don't like that guy too much. Billy Loman. No, that's the character. Henry Miller. No. Henry Miller? James Miller. Some white guy name. I don't like that playwright. It's one of these things that probably if I saw the play rather than reading the play, I probably would have liked it better because I do think that like form is very important to like how you engage with different types of storytelling. But I really just felt like they were depressing AF. The like symbolism was just like knock you over the head. I don't know. I just really did. I didn't enjoy. I did not. No. So does that mean I was disappointed? I didn't really have very many expectations for him to begin with. But I'll choose that guy, Henry Miller. Number 7 is a modern classic you would like to reread. I feel like The Bell Jar would be a really good one for that because, again, this was actually quite a formative book for me, but I haven't reread it since high school. I also read Franny and Zoe in college, and it affected me in surprising ways. Also, it's basically about a sister and brother who are part of a wealthy family with some troubling mental health issues again. Variations on a theme here. I think I would really like going back and looking at this one and like exploring it as a more mature reader, I guess. So both of these, I also love both of these books because they're so old, but like pristine. Like I don't know how I managed to keep these books like this because I feel like even my new ones, once I've read it, they just look so scraggly, whatever, but like these are beautiful. I love them. Number 8 is a recent release you think is going to be a modern classic in a few decades. And I'm very bad at like foreseeing these things. I think my best bet for sort of the essay genre would be Gia Tolentino. I think she's gonna have like definitely some essays that withstand time, I guess. Although I do think that maybe this is a risky bet because she does write a lot about like pop culture and like, you know, very era specific stuff. So I don't know how that's gonna age. But I think she has a couple bangers they'll be relevant in 50 years for sure. Other than that, I have writers that I really like that I want to be modern classics. Can I say I think they will be modern classics? No, not really. So I have one bet. That's fine. Number 9 is what is the next modern classic on your TBR? And for me, I've been wanting to get more into some Baldwin. So The Fire, I guess I probably should have mentioned this earlier in this video, but The Fire Next Time is literally my favorite book. I think it's my favorite book ever, but it is the only nonfiction of Baldwin that I've read, and I just got this like very comprehensive collection of his nonfiction, which I'm really looking forward to getting into. This is not something that I'm going to be like reading straight through, obviously, because it's dense and I would like to savor it. But I am very excited to get to read some more of his nonfiction, given that he's like my favorite essayist of all time. I haven't actually read any of Baldwin's fiction, so I'm hoping to read If Beale Street Could Talk this summer. I actually have no idea what this is about, but I trust this is going to be good, and I really want to watch the movie, but I want to read the book first, so maybe the worst reason to prioritize a book, but it's reality, so that's one reason why I want to read this. Okay, and then for number 10, I'm supposed to tag 3 classics lovers. I feel like basically all of my classic lovers that I know on BookTube probably overlap quite a lot with Melena's circle, so hopefully you guys haven't been tagged before. If so, I'm sorry. But I like to tag Tag King Brian. Hey Brian, Sorry, I know that you're overwhelmed with tags always, but I feel like you're gonna really like this one. I'd like to tag Brittany at Literarily Smitten, and I'd like to tag Charlotte at Queenie Reads. I'm pretty sure you've probably already been tagged, but that's it. That's all. Thank you so much for coming with me today on this tag journey. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Let me know if you have a modern classic that you love in the comments, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye.